that risk manifested itself for you as fear, as it will have done for everybody else.
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
I think given the nature of the conversation we had last time you're on, given the nature of it's been 6 years since you've done something out there, given the fact that you've been unfortunate in circumstances over the years with injuries, with things not going your way, with the external variables that go with big events, not necessarily going the way that you'd hoped, you felt under pressure going into this, didn't you?
Hugely, mate. Yeah, I felt I put myself under a lot of pressure. And we had sponsorship from brands externally, and you know, we were talking about it very openly, as opposed to me I could have just said, listen, Fergus, I'm going to enter this event, you know, quietly. I want to do something and just kind of chase my demons down a little bit. But we were very open about, and this is part of a year-long campaign to do 4 extreme events that you know, we've been very open about doing. So it's out there as well. So I carried a little extra weight, I think, in terms of my own managing of external expectations. I think anybody that I spoke to who was part of that accountability network would have said, don't worry so much, Jonny, but that's not the way you look at it as an individual, is it? You know that you've committed to do something for people. So that weighed on me, but for the most part it was a very personal journey, and the nature of that fear did overwhelm me at certain points. And you've alluded to it yourself, is that I had the previous event that I did 6 years before that. I think the last event that I tried or attended to was the Spine race, a kind of a sister race, if you like, or certainly linked in with Beyond the Ultimate. The directorship is linked. But a very well-known race across probably one of Britain's hardest races, maybe one of the world's hardest races, the Spine. I only got 50, maybe 60 miles into that race. Bad kit choices, and also I was carrying an injury from the very start that meant I was moving way slower than I could.
You were hypothermic in the end, weren't you?
I was hypothermic, yeah. And that marked the very end of maybe 3 years of DNFs, injuries, problems, long-standing injuries re-emerging, surgeries, etc. The list went on so long that when I finished the Spine, or when I was removed from the Spine with hypothermia, I'd almost decided that this must be the end for me. I can't keep banging my head against this wall or trying to get through these doors and just getting knockback after knockback. So to eventually get to a point, and it's worth saying, through a certain amount of inspiration in coaching you and doing the things we've done, is looking on and saying, I feel like there's part of me that can still attend to these things. I know that I'm physically capable of X, Y, and Z. So on paper, the metrics all say that I can do these things. So clearly the only thing stopping me is me. So pulling that trigger, saying, yeah, I'm going to do it, contacting Chris at Beyond the Ultimate, asking whether or not he would allow me to enter his races, it became the start of this journey that so far, I guess we're a quarter of the way through the year-long project, but certainly I'm past the Arctic as a journey, which has been, to your question, a journey through fear again. So
how has that manifested internally in your prep day-to-day life? For those that don't know, Jonny has 4 children and a wife to attend to, as well as being 50% of Omni Performance with myself, and training volume was on the up. You had pneumonia along the way.
I bloody did, yeah, over Christmas.
But it's fair to say that your training volume...
3 weeks away from me, didn't it?
Yeah, you did. And some years off your
some
life.
Years off my life, yeah.
by the way you looked during that period. But your training volume increased, your commercial demands increased because you had to manage relationships and how certain things were going to happen logistically. There was kit to buy, there was all the stress of it compounding over time. And that, in terms of headspace, is very susceptible to creating a dark cloud of anxiety and concern, as I've experienced, especially ahead of the double. I feel like prep-wise and feeling, we can probably draw a lot of similarities between how we're feeling without actually having necessarily unpacked it side by side and almost compared, because I felt right up against it with the double, but it was made much worse by just the sheer magnitude of what was to come, which was always front of mind. So I can imagine you felt the same.
I think they're very similar. Having watched your journey through that and talked to you about the psychological aspects and helped you manage some of that as we went through it, you know, being something of a counsel for you through some harder parts. as is my role as a friend, more so than a coach. I would say that there's parallels to be drawn there. You've definitely been there, and then on top of that is also this kind of compounding idea in my head of, am I finished in this? Is this stupid? And I guess that's a kind of I don't think it is quite imposter syndrome. It was just a fear of not being what I hope to be. So I'm asking questions of myself physically and psychologically that I previously, when I'd entered these things, even up to entering the spine, I felt confident that I could do it, that I had just had a bad run. But having knocked it all on the head and kind of really focused on the coaching for a long time, I'd almost got to a point where I'd unwittingly, perhaps, convinced myself that I was no longer predominantly an athlete and that I'd left those things behind. So then to commit to it, I then had the question of, are you a fool? Are you being an idiot? Are you going to get to this, fail, relive all those negative emotions that go along with failing, and there's lots to be learned from failure, as we know, but I didn't want to be in that same place again. So have I just set myself down the road for heartache one more time? And if so, why the hell have I done this? And that was kind of an underlying noise in the background that as the event got closer and closer, and as you've described, there were other things that kind of became bigger and bigger. The closer we got, the more the training is, the more things there are to manage, etc. Because it's a new experience in terms of the environment. There was kit that was new to me, so there was some learning to be done, etc., etc. But this noise in the background of this kind of negative self-reflection or negative "you can't do it" noise got louder and louder and louder until the night before the race. So already in the Arctic, I had a horrendous experience. The worst point of it was the night before.